Hello, everyone, and welcome inside episode 6. We've done 6 of these now, of That Movie Is Ours Now. You know the drill. That's Spider-Man. That's a one-handed Morgan Freeman bobblehead, and my name is David Sugarman. That Movie Is Ours Now is the podcast that's all about talking to interesting people about the different movies that have changed, affected, impacted their lives in some way, big or small. Now, today's guest has definitely had a big impact on my life. I emphasize the big there because today's guest is none other than my girlfriend, Courtney Robb. Courtney is the one who has to hear the absolute most about what I'm watching on any given night, what I'm looking forward to watching, that I'm turning my phone off when I go into the movie theater. And so thought it was only appropriate that we bring her on and talk about some of her favorite films. So before we get into that, I thought, given having Courtney on, I would talk a little bit about what we consider to be our movie, and that is La La Land. We saw La La Land on our very first date when we were students at Indiana University over 5 years ago. And I think over time, with a lot of different movies or shows or pieces of art, we tend to associate them with who we saw them with or where we were at a certain point in our lives. Were things going really well? Were we struggling? Were we with a parent, a friend, a loved one? In this case, it was the very beginning of a relationship that is still going, lucky for me. The meaning of La La Land has definitely, I think, changed in certain ways for me over time. I think I look at it a little bit differently now as a 26-year-old than I did as a junior in college. But no matter what, whenever we circle back to that movie, it just takes me right back to that place. It was an AMC in Bloomington, Indiana. I remember how I felt. I remember how nervous I was. I remember regretting that I wore a hoodie with a hole in it and a Nets jersey under it. That was just, I don't have an excuse. That was a really, really just poor form all the way around, but it makes me, it just takes me back to that place, remembering the feeling of being at the beginning of something that has been, for me, not to get too cheesy, but just really fantastic and rewarding. And I'm really lucky to still have Courtney in my life. And whenever I circle back to that movie, and usually it's with her together, it just makes me sort of grateful and think about that time that we had together. La La Land's also good to go into our discussion today because La La Land definitely in some ways a love letter to Los Angeles. And Courtney's favorite movie ever is Ferris Bueller's Day Off. She is a Chicago girl through and through, and that is definitely one of the best love letters to a city probably of all time in movies. I think so, and certainly Courtney does. So we're going to talk a lot of Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Some other favorites, we'll get into Legally Blonde, a little Devil Wears Prada. We love the strong female characters. We also love, or Courtney certainly loves, a great fashion sense, as you just heard. Maybe not so much for me.
You go to your closet and you select, I don't know, that lumpy blue sweater, for instance.
Of course, we'll circle back and talk just a little bit about La La Land and that heartbreaking ending that sort of works, but nonetheless. So can't wait for this discussion. This is episode 6 of That Movie Is Ours Now with our next guest, Courtney Robb. You're that spider guy.
Spider bed.
Huh?
Spider bed.
You want answers! I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
And here she is, the aforementioned Courtney Robb. Courtney, my dear, thank you so much for helping me out on this today. You're the one who hears me blabber on about movies the most, so figured you should come on and talk a little with me.
Yeah, I think that's only fair.
So I've already talked about you are my girlfriend, but you are much more than that. Figured I'd let you tell the people a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, contrary to popular belief, I do have my own identity, obviously, outside of being your girlfriend. No, wow, who am I? What a loaded question that is. Well, Courtney Robb, grew up in the Chicagoland area, went to Indiana University where I met David. Spent the last 4 years working in the SEC, peep the sweatshirt, as a local news sports anchor and reporter. A few months ago, I actually left my job to move back to Chicago, and I've been doing marketing for a financial services firm. So that's been big change, been a lot of fun. And yeah, that's sort of the gist of it. I won't bore anybody else with more of the details.
Obviously, you talked about you're from Chicago, now back in Chicago, and that's where we'll start with, safe to say, your favorite of all time, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. As far as the canon of cities that are characters in their own movies or love letters to cities, Ferris Bueller ranks pretty high. What is it about Ferris Bueller's Day Off that sort of captures the essence of all the best parts of Chicago that a Chicagoan like you loves?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair to say that John Hughes movies as a whole just have a lot of central Chicago themes to them that if you're like me, and first of all, if you don't know a Chicagoan, I just have to say, you won't find many people as passionate about their own cities as you will find a Chicagoan passionate about Chicago.
A team that is known as the Bears. The Bears.
I think it's part of the uniqueness of the city is that people from here absolutely, other than the winter, love it here and love saying that they're from Chicago. And I think Ferris Bueller's Day Off is essentially just like the antithesis of all of that, right? So you have Ferris, who's this kid from the suburbs, and it's a gorgeous day, which if you're from here, like I said, the first really nice day of the year, absolutely nobody wants to be in an office. Nobody wants to be in a school. Like, you're looking for that day off. And so driving down the expressway to get into the heart of the city with his dad's car, and you know, you're immediately taken to such landmarks like the Corncob Towers, where you see those. You're going to a Cubs game, the snooty French restaurant.
May I speak to Abe Froman? The Sausage King of Chicago.
So many different parts of that movie, and the fact that it takes place in such a integral part of the city, I think just sort of sums up everything and kind of just tells the story of why people from here love the city, is really, I think, what Ferris Bueller's Day Off comes down to.
Like I say, it's a good movie, you know, on its own, and the coming of age stuff and the story and the characters. It's all entertaining and funny. For you as a person from Chicago, do you think you would be as attached to that movie as you are if it were in anywhere else, if it were New York, in Los Angeles, or any other city around the country?
I mean, absolutely not. I think like the fact that it's set here is the reason it's such, you know, it's my favorite movie of all time. It's very much like comfort movie, homesick movie, sick day film, like that sort of vibe. And also in general, like that movie means a lot to me because I have such good memories. Like one of my core best memories is attached to that movie. And I know I've told you this before, and I'm sure my dad has, you know, told this story too, but like when I was younger, my dad took both me and my brother downtown and did like a full like Ferris Bueller day where we went to the Sears Tower and like we reenacted the scene of them looking out of the window, and we went and just did a bunch of other like city things throughout the day and spent like our spring break weekend down there one year, and it like forever became known as like our Ferris Bueller weekend. And I'm sure without that too, would I be like as attached to the movie? Maybe not, but also has one of my favorite quotes of all time, if not my favorite quote of all time, which was in the intro, which is, life moves pretty fast. You don't stop to look around once in a while. You can miss it, which I just feel like is a great way to think about life because it's true.
If you were taking an absolute stranger to Chicago, what does Courtney's day off look like?
Well, it looks like the perfect weather day, which is probably between like the 70s, 80s here, like maybe partly cloudy, mostly sunny. Not a whole lot of like touristy things in there. But definitely going into the city, maybe going to a Cubs game or some kind of like sporting event, having a couple of brews, maybe going to the lake and either walking up and down Lakeshore Drive or going to the beach and enjoying the beach for part of the day. It's a food and drink city, so definitely hitting up restaurants, maybe having, slice of deep dish, maybe a Chicago-style hot dog.
Malort?
I'm not getting any Malort shots in there personally, because it's disgusting.
And for the people who don't know, like, please explain a Malort shot and the old style and all that.
So a Chicago handshake is a Chicago drink, right? So you get a shot of Malort, which is a liqueur, and it's, as most of us will describe, disgusting. And it's not the shot itself that's bad. It's truly the aftertaste. Really just tastes like the inside of somebody's shoe. So it's not great, but Old Style is a classic Chicago beer as well. So you get an Old Style, you get a shot of Malort, you take the shot, you drink the Old Style. That's a Chicago handshake. For first timer, sure. For an everyday regular, I would just have a 312 personally. Goose Island wheat ale, as opposed to putting myself through pain and suffering that is Malort shot. So no, probably not. Ferris was underage, so he definitely wasn't drinking.
He broke a lot of rules, though.
He did break. Rules are meant to be broken, So, but he was driving that very schwanky car. He wasn't gonna ruin it by taking Malort shots downtown. I'll tell you that much.
Fair enough. He was responsible, but not or irresponsible, but not reckless.
He was responsibly irresponsible.
I think that's a fair way to put it. Now, I know there are a couple of cool. Both with Ferris Bueller and a couple other John Hughes ones, Breakfast Club. We'll call them like Courtney Chicago movie fun facts or something. Give us a couple of the trivia ones that are things in your backyard related to Ferris and some other things, because there's some pretty cool ones.
Yeah, so a majority of John Hughes movies were shot in a nearby suburb of where I grew up and where like my family has been located forever. So that's cool. Like the Home Alone house is, like 10 minutes down the road, essentially, from like my dad's house. If you've ever watched Mean Girls, I told David this one the other day, that like the mall that they have in that movie is set off of Old Orchard, which is out in the Chicago suburbs. There's, a bunch of spots. One of the local high schools, supposedly, I don't know how true this is, but this is what I heard. The high school that the Breakfast Club was shot at was actually shot at my mom's high school growing up. So the high school doesn't exist anymore, but at the time. So a couple different spots. But John Hughes movies just naturally hold a very special place in my heart. It was like, very important that I was raised with the knowledge that was every single one of those movies. My dad was very much like, could not raise us without making sure we had seen every single one and had the appropriate movie knowledge.
Want to bounce around to a couple of your other favorites that are similar in some ways, and I know you've had love for a long, long time. Devil Wears Prada.
Yeah.
And Legally Blonde, the two Courtney Robb staples. I know they're different in some ways, but what is it about those movies that are just enjoyable? But again, I know those are comfort movies for you, that those are some of the movies that you want to go back to on repeat or think about a lot.
Yeah, Legally Blonde holds a special place in my heart, specifically because another movie that I sort of just grew up with. And fun fact about me is for the longest time, I wanted to pursue a law degree and pursue a JD, which didn't end up happening because I decided I didn't want to go through that much paperwork on a consistent basis, which a lot of law is paperwork. But I think Legally Blonde was one of, like, you know, the first movies I probably ever saw that featured a very strong female starring role that very much at the time still centered around a man, but was almost like, well, I'm going to not only get revenge on a guy, but I'm going to do 10 times better than anybody thought I would do. And I'm also going to look fabulous while doing it. And, you know, truly teach people to expect the unexpected. I think Elle Woods is a phenomenal three-dimensional character because people peg her from the beginning as this dumb blonde sorority girl from Los Angeles or Malibu or wherever. I think her college university at the time is supposed to be like USC or something along those lines, or UCLA maybe. But she very much proves otherwise that, you know, what? Like, it's hard.
You got into Harvard Law?
What, like it's hard?
And that movie came out when we were pretty young.
Yeah, 2001, so about 5 years old, or yeah, 5 years old.
My mom told me that she saw that movie, I believe, in the theaters, and she said when she saw that movie, she was like, that's Courtney. Like, Elle Woods is her. And I think, you know, I embody some Elle Woods energy.
Oh, yes.
It's like, what? Like, it's hard? You know, you got me a sweatshirt that even says that. So, should have worn that today. But, you know, her character and sort of her story development, too, was just like, I was always raised under, like, the central theme of, like, you can do whatever you want to do. Like, you're not, you know, going to be stopped by the fact that you're a woman or for any reason other than, like, I was raised to believe, like, you're your own biggest obstacle. And I just think because of that, I very much saw parts of myself in Elle Woods of, I've never liked being told I can't do something. Like, if I'm not going to be able to do it, it's because I come to that own determination, not so much somebody else. And I think same energy for her was like, well, all these people are telling me I can't do it, but truly, like, I'm going to go do it. And I'm going to do it 10 times better than anybody thought I would. And I think I just always sort of latched onto that. Also, it's like core rom-com. It's got so many themes I love. It's got, like, true crime in there. It's got a fabulous girl. And obviously, like, as a girl growing up, loved, like, the fashion and everything. Reese Witherspoon is, you know, I love her as an actress. I think she always does such a phenomenal job. You got Bruiser, the cute dog. Like, there's just so much to love in that movie. I can't imagine.
You haven't even mentioned Jennifer Coolidge yet.
Jennifer Coolidge, too.
The queen that she is. I'm taking the dog.
Like, so many just great scenes from that movie. The second one, not so good, but the original was fantastic as a whole. Like, it did not miss. There was not one scene in there where I was like, man, I wish this wasn't in here. Like, the whole thing from start to finish, from, like, you know, it starts with that song that's like Perfect Day and ends with it. And, like, I hear that, I'm like, immediately Legally Blonde.
Yeah, and those Legally Blonde and getting into Devil Wears Prada, like, can you sort of break down what they mean to you in terms of, I think a lot of people today are talking more and more about representation, which is awesome, having female protagonists, and you hear a lot that it's important for, like, you know, action and superhero franchises maybe that are marketed towards kids, and that's all great, but there's something to be said for, I'm trying to phrase this right, of you know, certainly more feminist aspects like the fashion world and things like that, while still being really strong and not, you know, everything revolving around a guy, and having that kind of protagonist in a world that isn't maybe just action or a blockbuster?
Well, I think two things. So for both The Devil Wears Prada and for Legally Blonde, I think it's fair to say neither of those movies passes the Bechdel test.
No,
Right.
certainly not Legally Blonde, and Devil Wears Prada is closer, but no.
Yeah, very much so does not pass the Bechdel test by any means. So that being said, very strong leading roles, and I would be amazed to find any popular movies from the 90s to early 2000s era, mid 2000s even, if not late 2000s, that actually passed the Bechdel test, which basically is, you know, the central storyline having a female starring role and not revolving around a man, right? So there's still a lot of romance involved, as obviously they're sort of romantic comedies at the end of the day. So although I don't know if The Devil Wears Prada would be classified as a rom-com, it's more of like I would say a dramedy, like a drama comedy. Yeah. But, and then in terms of diversity also, I will say neither of them do a great job. They're pretty much all still predominantly white, cis characters. So again, that's, you know, telling of the time period that both of them were made and set in, and we still obviously have a way to go. But I think I latched onto a lot of movies that did have that sort of centralized powerful, I don't really care what anybody thinks female role. I mean, you know, another one of my favorites is Miss Congeniality, which was very much, you know, the boyish woman who was just working for the FBI and then found herself having to become a pageant queen, but still kicking ass while doing it.
While being fabulous.
While being fabulous.
That's a really important part.
While being fabulous. And her transformation scene is iconic too. But I think any of those roles, and growing up at that time too, where, you know, I'm thankful that like my dad, not that he was raised by a single mom, but you know, there's something to be said for the fact that he was raised by a single mom. And so was very much like, there are people that are going to tell you like you can't do things. And that's not true. But I also got to see a lot of that on the TV screen, which I'm sure many women for so many times. And obviously being, you know, a white woman, I had the privilege of seeing other white women growing up too in those roles and starting to be more in those roles, to where I could think of myself as an Elle Woods. I could think of myself, you know, as an Andy Sachs in The Devil Wears Prada, trying to break it into the journalism field and work as a personal assistant for an absolute terror that was Miranda Priestley. Or I could think of myself, you know, as Miss Congeniality and as Sandra Bullock's character, and, you know, an FBI agent who becomes a pageant queen and saves the day. Like, I was thankful to have characters like that, or even if you wanted to get into the animated realm, obviously, you know, growing up at the time of many, many Disney princesses, I also had Mulan, who was, you know, sacrificing herself to save her dad, and very much conforming to a lot of more traditionally, predominantly male traits in China at that time too, which up until then, you never had a Disney princess who was sort of doing anything remotely like that. And obviously she still even had a romantic interest, but the movie at its core wasn't about that. And I think having those types of characters that I could, like I said, latch onto and connect to, was really helpful as like a young kid. Like, and I think I definitely probably loved them more because I could see myself in those types of characters.
All right, a few rapid fires. First, I got to add one on special for you. You could steal the closet of Elle Woods or post-makeover Andy from Devil Wears Prada.
Post-makeover Andy, hands down.
More options.
I love Elle, but her fashion isn't really my style, but I can appreciate it. But There were many things that like there was a period of time where I wanted like full front bangs because Andy got them in that movie and looked so chic. Also would also die for the Chanel boots.
When they make the Courtney Robb true story, who's playing you?
I've always said Anna Kendrick. I just feel like we look kind of similar. And she's a petite brunette white woman, so I feel like it would work. And
Firecracker energy.
I also read her book, and I feel like we have similar like kinds of humor and things. So I feel like
she could embody you.
I feel like she could do me justice. Yeah.
I think I know your answer, but let's still hear it. What is the movie ending that you would change, and what would you change it to?
Oh, that's a tough one. I'm surprised you're like, I think I know your answer because I don't even know that I know my answer to that question. I love a happy ending, truly. I love a predictable happy ending. So if I'm guessing correctly, I'm assuming you think I'd change La La Land's ending?
I do. I mean, that's kind of, you know, I mentioned this before. That's the one, the movie that's sort of, I guess, our movie. And Courtney and I saw that on our first date. If I remember correctly, you were seeing it for the second time.
I did see it the second time.
And yeah, I'm pretty lucky in that department. And
yeah, the first time,
I mean,
I saw it too the first time with a different man. Friendship, though. Shout out Taylor Lane.
Anyway, that's been That Movie Is Ours now, and I'll see you around.
Oh, okay. This is awkward.
But so now, like, I mean, now you're a few years removed from seeing it, and we watch the movie probably once or twice a year. Would you change the ending?
Okay, I understand why they made the ending the way that they did.
But
that being said,
however,
it still breaks my heart because I wanted them to make it work so badly and for them to end up together. And obviously, I think the theme they were going for there was like, you have people in your life for like, you know, the cheesy line. It's like a season, a reason, or for like a lifetime. And obviously, Sebastian and Mia like were in each other's lives for more than just a season. It was 4 seasons. It was a full calendar year. So maybe, you know, a reason to really help sort of push and motivate each other. But, you know, at the end of the day, they couldn't make it work romantically and moved on. And I hate that because the romance story they make so beautiful for the entire movie, just to like rip you out and let you know, like, they don't end up together. And obviously, like, there is something to be said and there is some kind of beauty in not having the predictable ending, right? Because it's so easy to be like, happily ever after, they end up together, they both got the careers they wanted and everything worked out. But it's obviously so much more real to say they both helped each other get to the places they wanted to go and their careers worked out and they accomplished their dreams how they wanted to, but it did come at the price of not being able to be with the person that they had so much love for. And so I can appreciate the ending.
It also doesn't help that they rip your heart out like right before with the, you know, with the montage, with the big long montage of what could have been or what might have been, you know. Honestly, what breaks my heart more than the ending every time, you know, we watch it is him missing the opening of the one woman show. I know it's coming every time now, obviously. Yes. I never want to punch Ryan Gosling in the face more than in that moment. Well, I tell you what, do you get more riled up at that or when he takes the cheap shot when they're having dinner of you like me better when I was down and a loser? Because that gets me going too.
Him missing her play because actions speak louder than words. I don't think they're the first couple in history to get into an argument and say things that they didn't mean or were a little bit below the belt. I think that gets the best of probably everybody at some point. So that, you know, is easier to forgive than him missing her play because that was such a big thing for her.
Yeah.
And
the cheesy photo shoot. When he's playing the piano and like looking up.
He didn't even want to be there for, and he was like a complete sellout for, and you know, at the end of the day, like you show up for the other person, and he didn't show up for her. So would I change the ending of that movie? Maybe in a perfect world, but like I also, like I said, I can appreciate it for what it is, and I do understand why they did it the way that they did it. And I don't know that it would be the same movie if everything was happily ever after. So, you know, I'm back and forth on that.
We've talked about a few of your top 3 or 4 here. Desert Island movie, the one you'd bring that would take you the longest to get sick of. Could be a different one if it wasn't one of the ones we talked about today.
It's definitely one of the top 3. Okay. It's definitely like either.
I'll let you bring. I'll give you a pass. You can bring like the Courtney Robb box set, so you get like 2 to 3.
So can I bring my core 3?
Okay. Yes. Fine. This was kind of lame, but yeah. So what are those? So is it the 3 we talked about today?
Yeah, I mean probably Ferris Bueller's, because like I said, homesick movie.
And on a desert island, you would get homesick.
Yes, definitely.
But with the box set, I'm forcing you to bring The Lion King and we had to bring this up.
I knew it was coming.
Because you've never, and this is true, spoiler warning, Courtney has never seen The Lion King. Would you like to trot out your bad justification?
Yes. And I would like to preface this by saying I technically have never seen The Lion King in full. It's true. It's not like I've never sat down to watch it. So obviously The Lion King came out. It was, you know, a core movie for so many children. And I was told, and we had like every Disney movie known to man in our household. I was told, you know, as I got older and I would meet people and be like, yeah, you know, I've never really seen The Lion King, and people would ask why. So I eventually asked my parents why I had never seen The Lion King. And from what I was told was when I was a very tiny child, toddler situation, they had put The Lion King on for me, and some animal dies at the beginning.
Mufasa, not some animal, the king, Mufasa.
Some animal dies at the beginning of the movie, and I was brought to tears. Like I started wailing. And what do you do as a parent of a toddler that starts crying because an animal dies? Because I loved animals as a kid, still do. They turned it off, and I think it scarred me so hard that I never grew up with the urge to watch that movie. I still knew, like, obviously Hakuna Matata and
but
The Circle of Life, but did I ever sit down to watch the movie? No. And now I feel like I can't watch it because I think it's been hyped up to me so much.
Oh, I feel simply awesome. Must have slipped my mind.
One of these days I'll force you to sit down and watch it.
I like think it's that good, and I feel like I've gone 26 years of my life without seeing it. So I'm like, am I really missing out that much if I still haven't seen it? Like, I don't feel like I'm, you know, I can still
Mufasa, not some animal. Respect for royalty, please.
I know.
I'll give you one more before I let you go, babe, and that is as much as I watch movies, and maybe it's because I watch way too many, I always love to point out whenever I quote something back to you, particularly if it's a favorite of yours, I have a habit of like always placing one word or two out of place. I know you mentioned the Ferris Bueller quote being maybe your favorite of all time. What is like your go-to quote, or the one that always cracks you up or makes you think, or is just drop dead entertaining, that I need to stop screwing up?
So there's not like one quote that I'm like, wow, David messes up all the time that I really wish he would get right.
However,
we'll be talking about movies. I think the difference too is like you watch movies in surplus. And you're not much of a repeat watcher.
Too much stuff out there to get to.
And I'm kind of exclusively like, I have my movies. And I'm much more of like a comfort watcher, and so I'm watching movies for not like new, but new revelations, but more so because like I already know I like them. And so I think because of that, I've seen all the movies that I love time and time and time again to where I know them. Like I could recite my favorite movies probably from start to finish for anybody if they really wanted me to. And you will watch one through and feel like, you'll recognize a really good quote and you'll recite it back to me. And I'll be like, oh, it's all wrong.
All right, Miranda girl, give me your best Miranda Priestley. Go. This is the finisher, so close strong.
Ooh, hold on. Let me think of
and get into character. You've got the glasses on too, so you can like, chew on the end or do, pull something there.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that because I won't do it as much. I won't do Meryl Streep justice like that. And I could never. But one of my favorite things she says in the movie is, please move at a glacial pace. You know how that thrills me.
By all means, move at a glacial pace. You know how that thrills me.
I like to bring that one up in conversation every now and then. That one's good too. Also, the hurricane scene where she's like, it's just drizzling, and there's a hurricane outside. Like that's
a very cool. That of the three we talked about a lot today, Prada, Legally Blonde, and Ferris Bueller, I think is just the most sharp, witty, quotable
one. Which one? The
Devil Wears Prada.
The drizzling one.
Just that movie in general, I think, is the sharpest as far as just the most easy to pull quotes.
Yeah, and for like all of the characters too.
Yeah.
Emily has some fantastic character like lines as well. Nigel.
Oh, Stanley Tucci, the king of cinema.
Wake up, 6. Like that was one I quoted a lot growing up. Because it was so there's like you said, a lot of punchy quotes. But I can't think of anything that you get wrong off the top of my head. It's like every single one you get wrong. So it's more you get it wrong. You got one wrong last night. I forget what it was even, but
I'm sure it'll come to you. You can tell me and I can edit it in later.
Yeah.
On that note, Courtney, I do appreciate you coming on. I love talking movies with you. I've mentioned the poster on this before. I'm 91 down. So Courtney's great because she puts up with me talking about movies and she enhances my love for movies and film. And she has great taste as well. Courtney, if people do want to find your movie takes, your SEC football takes, your financial advice and work now, where can they find you on the social medias?
Yeah, I mean, probably the best place is my Twitter. I'm pretty unhinged on there for the most part. 80% professional, 20% personal. But at Court, COURTK, as in Kelly, Robb, ROBB. You can find me at that. I was a professional member of the media, so pretty easy to find on social media, as well as it's still my job now, so kind of have to be. But yeah, you can follow me there, tweet at me, give me your hot takes. I'm all here for it.
Awesome. Well, Court, thanks so much for hopping on. Appreciate it. And I'll probably talk to you very, very soon. This has been episode 6 of That Movie Is Ours Now with Courtney Robb.
Guess I'll see you in the